Well, hello students. Today we're going to learn about finding the midpoint between 2 points, either on a graph or just the ordered pairs, and how to find the distance. Now, the distance formula you have used before back, I don't know when, Math 1, maybe even prior to that. But anyhow, this will be a good review for you on this. Now, the notes that I'm going to ask you to take right now are not printed out. You're just going to need to take these notes on your own paper. And when you're done, there will be a paper quiz that you're to do. The answers are on the last page, but you need to figure it all out, show me all the steps, and then submit that to me. You do not need to submit these notes that you're going to take, okay? All right, when we talk about the midpoint, for instance, on this one, we want to find what's the halfway point between that dot and that dot. In fact, I like to label, so we'll call that point A and call that point B. Now, to find the midpoint, it's just super easy. All you got to do is find, in fact, let me just write the formula down. The midpoint is you add up the x values, divide them by 2, add up the y values, and divide them by 2. And that will be your ordered pair of the midpoint. Okay, so first you have to distinguish, well, what is the ordered pair that describes point A? Well, that's at -3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so that's -3, 5. And point B is at 0, -1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 0, -5. Okay, so let's just first do it in our head, and then we'll do it on paper. What we want to deal with the x's first. All right, what's the halfway point between a -3 and a 0 on the x-axis? Well, you could actually count it up and then divide it in your head, but let's just add -3 plus 0 is -3, divided by 2 is -1.5, okay? So let's do over here a midpoint of the x values is going to be, what did I say? -3, in fact, I don't need that, plus 0 divided by 2 is going to be -1.5. So already we know that the midpoint, and I'm going to write over here, the x value is -1.5. Now all we got to do is find the y value. So the midpoint of the y value, and what are the two y values? So we have 5 plus a -5 would be 0, right? Divided by 2 is still 0. So just again, for the sake of writing it down, and on the quiz that you're going to take, I want you to show these steps. I don't want you to just do it in your head. I mean, I know you can do it in your head, but I want to see what you've done. So that's 0 over 2, which is 0. All right, so the halfway point between here and here is -1.50, and so we can actually approximate it right about there. And sure enough, that looks like it makes sense, doesn't it? Okie dokie. Well, let's go to a second example. I can't remember how many I've got here. I think there are 5 examples. Well, that didn't work out. There we go. All right. Excuse me a second, I want to get a cup of coffee. So what is the midpoint or the halfway point between here? Well, I'm going to write it out somewhat of a different way, not to confuse you, but just to help you see what we're doing. The ordered pair is going to be those two x values added together, divided by 2, and then these two y values added together and divided by 2. You good so far? and that will be the ordered pair of the midpoint. So what does that give us? Well, 3 plus negative 5 is negative 2. Negative 2 divided by positive 2 is negative 1. Negative 2 plus 7 is 5. 5 divided by 2. Should we leave it as a fraction, as 5 halves, or yeah, for right now, we're going to leave it as 5 halves. You could divide that out, and what is that? It'd be 2.5. Is that right? 4. Yeah, okay. All right, and there you have it. There's the midpoint. All right, let's go to a fourth problem. My goodness, what is going on here? Well, this is the third problem. Well, I messed up somehow. I don't know how, but I'm used to messing up. All right, so here, this is a little bit different. Here we're given one endpoint, the midpoint, and we're asked to find the other endpoint. All right, so what I like to do is I like to label these guys, and we'll call that A. We'll call the midpoint B. And so we're trying to find the other endpoint. And I think it makes sense to me to do it on a line like this. So there's one endpoint. The halfway point, the midpoint, is there. And now we're trying to find that ordered pair. Well, there are a couple ways we can do it, and believe it or not, some of my students showed me that this is actually an easier way than the official formula way. So think about this. Let's look from, think of a number line. If you were counting down from 5 all the way down to negative 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, how many units would that have been? Well, I think most of you can tell that would have been 9 units from positive 5 down to negative 4. So what you want to do is then start at negative 4 and go 9 units further. But again, we're going, this is the bigger, this is the smaller. We're going to continue in that smaller, in this case, a negative direction. So if you're at negative 4 and you go 9 more units in a negative direction, you are at negative 13. Now you can go backwards. You can say, okay, if it's 9 from 5 to negative 4, is it also 9 units from negative 13 to negative 4? And if you do the adding and subtracting in your head, sure, it is. All right, let's go with the y's. Okay, so from positive 6, if I march down to negative 7, how many units would I have gone? All right, so it'd be 6 down to 0, and then another 7 in the negative direction. So that's going to be, 13 steps. All right, so let's start at negative 7 then, and go 13 further steps in a negative direction. And that'll give us at negative 20. And that would be your answer. All right, let's go to number 4. Yay, that one worked right. Okay, so here we're looking, same thing, we're given a midpoint, we're given one endpoint, and in this case we're trying to find endpoint A. So, and it looks, let's go from 0 to negative 2, that would be 2 units that way, that's in a negative direction, so let's go 2 units this way, that would be in a positive direction, so if we add 2 units to 0, we're at positive 2, correct? Now, if we're at 5 and we go down to 4, we went down 1 unit, so we'll go back up this way 1 unit, and that will be 6. And there you have it. Okay, that's midpoint. Let's go now to the distance formula. Now, the distance formula you do need to commit to memory. In Math 2, there aren't too many things we have to commit to memory. You had to do the quadratic formula to memory, the special right triangles, 30, 60, 90, 45, 45, 90. Those are the two that come to my mind. But the distance formula, you also need to commit to memory. And here it is. The distance between any two ordered pairs on a graph, and that's what we're dealing with, is the square root of the difference of the x's squared plus the difference of the y's squared. All right, so the first thing we want to do now is we want to identify these ordered pairs. All right, this one here is negative 1, negative 1, negative 4. And this guy over here is 1, 2, 3, 4, up 1. All right. Now, it does not matter which one you call x sub 1, x sub 2. Let's just call that x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. So, here I'm going to plug them into my little equation. X sub 2, I'm going to say 4 minus a negative 1. Okay, we know minus a negative is going to be plus, but for the moment, let's write it as we read it. 4 minus a negative 1 squared plus 1 minus a negative 4 squared. Okay, let's keep going. Let's simplify now right here. All right, so 4 minus a negative 1 is 4 plus 1, which is 5. 5 squared is 25 plus 1 minus a negative 4 is like 1 plus 4, which would be 5. 5 squared is 25. Oh, okay. So the distance between those two is the square root of 50. Now, we're not quite done because 50 can simplify. And if it can simplify, you must. 50 can break down into the square root of 25 times the square root of 2. And so the square root of 25 is 5 times the square root of 2. And there you have it. That is, algebraically, the distance between here and here in terms of units. Now, if you put that in the calculator, and I don't have my calculator with me, that's going to be like 1.4 times 5. It's going to be something like 6. It doesn't look like 6 to me. Okay, but it's at an angle, so that would make sense, sort of. All right, let's go on to the next one. Okay, here, this is just more straightforward. We want to find the distance between here and here. That's the number 5, in case you're wondering. So let's just plug it in. We got the distance between, all right, 0 minus 3 squared plus, again, you just have to commit that formula to memory, 5 minus a negative 3 squared. All right, let's keep going. So we have that the distance is the square root of, all right, 0 minus 3 is negative 3, but negative 3 squared is positive 9 plus 5 minus a negative 3 would be like 5 plus 3. That would be 8. 8 squared is 64. So this would be, the distance then would be 9 plus 64 would be 73. And that cannot be broken down any further, so that would be your answer. And I believe that's all I did for today. Let's double check. Yep, it is. Okay, have at it, guys, and I hope you do real well. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.